Welcome to Three, a show about Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic and part of the Tennis Channel podcast network. I'm Gill Gross with Joel Drucker and Amy Lundy. We are back again after semifinal Friday. Unfortunately, only one, but Novak Djokovic beats Cam Norie in 4 sets to move on to the final. He will have a chance for his 7th Wimbledon title, his 4th straight. Nick Kyrgios in the final. The end of this episode will be a discussion about that match. But first, we're going to talk about Djokovic Norrie. We're going to talk about Nadal's withdrawal. Lots of storylines flying around in relation to that right now. So plenty to discuss as Nadal withdraws due to a tear in his abdominal muscle. But Djokovic beats Norrie in 4 sets. I usually ask you guys for like an overarching thought on the match, but I actually want to pause after the first set. I only want to hear what you were thinking after the first set. Norrie wins it 6-2, Joel.
No way he keeps that up. That's what I thought. And as soon as the second set started, I saw already some of the errors coming from Norrie, and you just knew Novak was getting into kind of lockdown mode as he can get. I mean, I think, and you texted me some of the data, Gill, about what Novak 12 unforced in the first set.
Yep.
5 and 4 in the next 2 sets.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, so it's just, again, it's funny that people came to center court hoping to see 2 matches. They initially, but Rafa had to withdraw. They kind of got 2 matches today. They got a really good set from Cam Norie, and then Novak pretty much in control.
It's funny. I have a friend that I was texting with that I would say has just recently caught the tennis bug and is starting to watch a lot of professional tennis. And he was texting me about Norie being at this point in the tournament and that he must have gotten lucky. And is he a pusher? And I'm kind of like, no, shaking my head. So I had to spend the first part of the match convincing him that Norie is a really good player and deserves to be there and is a lefty and is extremely tricky. And then I had him so convinced, he was like, so is Norie going to win the match after the first set? And I said, no. Novak's got this. And my impression was that, I mean, Novak said in the post-match that he was a little tight and wasn't hitting through his shots. That really wasn't my impression. Of course, he's going to be tight. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on him, but I didn't think there was any more pressure on him than he usually feels. What I thought was Norie, as we've talked about, has an unconventional technique, and they had never played on grass before. They had only played indoors on hard court. And picking up the ball off of his racket as vis-a-vis this surface, I thought was just a little bit tricky for Novak, and that he needed some time, a set, to kind of visually start picking it up. And I thought that was evidenced by some wrong footing by Novak in the first set, where he thought he spotted a dropper and then he went back, and then he was just kind of didn't have his feet under him. But after that first set, he started to visually click in, and then it was all Novak from there.
The discrepancy between Norrie's forehand and his backhand is so enormous that it can't be a great feeling if you don't have your timing and you don't have your footwork. I agree that was a factor. The one thing I would disagree with is that Djokovic feels the same amount of pressure as normal. I think the pressure's way up here, given he hasn't won a major this year and might not get to play the US Open. Nadal withdraws. That doesn't help, because now he's an even bigger favorite. The expectation that he's supposed to win is even higher. So when I saw him as tight as he was, I mean, credit to Norie, but normally when Djokovic, even when he's tight, he still makes more balls in the court than he did in the first set. I was just thinking, wow, this is another level of pressure right now that Djokovic is dealing with. But once he kind of got his confidence and loosened up, it was okay.
Well, he sort of took Norrie's measure. He kind of saw how much he could do. I mean, he's a lot of diagnostic going on in that first set and seeing how balls are and adjusting, I think, as Amy pointed out, the grass surface and just getting used to the Norie ball, which is a little bit different than a great many contemporary pros.
So now the next 3 sets come around. Joel, you mentioned Novak. His mistakes go way down. He's not giving Norie anything. His defense played a role. His first serve, his forehand, everything kind of started clicking. What did you make, Amy, of the portion of the match that Djokovic was dominating?
That Norie wasn't putting as many of Novak's serves in play. So either Novak really improved his serve, particularly his first serve, which I think is the case, or Norie started making more return errors. It's probably a combination of the two. Either way, he started to roll, and he started to get into the frame of mind that you, Gill, have often pointed out that he needs to be in to do well, which is he becomes almost error free. And then when he does make an error, he gets a little irritated with himself. I don't think it was in the second set. It might have been in the third set that he started engaging with a fan who was yelling at him, just a little bit of motivational testiness, I'll call it. And that is really when he starts to groove and roll.
Well, you also see with Novak, I think it was about 26 of 32 at the net. Again, some great numbers from Novak at the net throughout this tournament. And the serve, and we saw, well, this will be one of those cases where yet another underrated, lesser looked at aspect of how the Novak serve performs. It's almost like these great players, they're like a team, and each shot is one of the players on the team. And this becomes a chance for that shot to shine. And I think Norrie's, pretty wound, like a pretty highly strung to come off with all those great shots in the first set. It's like, so how do you keep that going? And Novak is not going to go away. So it's just, again, two matches. And I think whereas Sinner in the quarterfinal, he ran out of ideas. I think he had fewer questions to ask, and Novak, okay, this is all you're going to ask me. Norie had a lot of ideas, but even he admitted he kind of lost the plot line on the execution front.
Yeah, I agree with that. Did you guys see, just before we move away from the serve, did you see the Hawkeye graphic in the fourth set?
No.
No, what?
The ESPN showed a Hawkeye graphic of his first serve spots, and they put a red box around the middle of the service box, and I think they give about a foot away from the line. It might be even like 8 inches or something. I mean, Djokovic is just pinpoint on his first serve, and against Sinner in the last 3 sets, we saw the first serve numbers incredibly high, and it was the same thing in this match. He's not losing much behind his first serve, and even if you get it back, he's been so comfortable, as you alluded to, Joel, just hitting approach shots and staying on top of the point, if you hit a short return. And then what was you talk about the execution with Norie. Yeah, you started to see a lot of mistakes creep in. I actually thought the intimidation factor between Djokovic's movement and his defense, but also just the idea that I need to be extra special and extra great in order to beat this guy, I think that got to Norie, because he was pretty impatient in this match. Like, he was pretty aggressive. And I thought at a certain point, he should have been like, okay, let's go cross court on our forehand. Let's go safe cross court and stop trying to force the issue so desperately, because there were too many unforced errors from Norie.
Isn't that like the way it is in almost every match? When you get down, you start to feel, it's natural to start to feel that you need to do more. I couldn't agree more, Gill, that I thought he became a little trigger happy. He was too fast starting in the second set to try to go for a winner by changing directions or trying to put too much heat on the ball. Even on the serve, I think for the match, Norie was 57% putting first serves in at 57%. That's not going to cut it. I mean, that's not going to cut it anywhere, but especially not against Novak Djokovic.
Novak makes people increasingly self-conscious of their technique. It'd be interesting to talk with Norie, coach, and his camp. Say, what's your gestalt to the game? What is it exactly? Because Norie, he's adroit, he's clever. I'm a left-handed. I like a lot of the things he does, but it's not clear the whole recipe of offense, defense, movement, adventure, innovation, and then again, Novak is going to put that to the test. really? You really got that? Are you going to come up with that many? I mean, he played so many engaging points in that first set. So many beauties, right? To when like the opening game, he breaks them with this little cat and mouse and backhand volley winner. It's like, okay, but really, what is it? And also, I think the less you are sound of your technique, the more you feel the need to go for something sooner. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying that about a Wimbledon semifinalist, but there, I said it.
And remember how I said that going into this, that Norie should try something radical like lobbing, because Novak isn't as crisp on his overheads, and it was actually Novak that lobbed Norie a few times and drew an error on an overhead, and it was Norie that looked really unsure.
I think multiple overhead misses. I don't know if it was more than 2, but
remember the tweener lob? Remember that one?
Yeah, I think
that was incredible.
When you're a player like Norie and you're on the innovation index, because your game is built around a broad set of things, this is a little different than Sinner, and you miss those. Missing an overhead then can create erosion in the other strokes too, not just the overhead, because I think there's not as much technical soundness. I think Sinner is a little different. Sinner just didn't have as many ideas. It's almost like you could take each of them. Okay, you have some ideas, you have some execution, but I think Novak, when you start to miss, you get things self-conscious, then you start to go more on the other shots. I mean, Norie was starting to miss some forehands pretty frequently, don't you think, Gill?
Totally. And that's where I do think he was going for a lot on them. That's where it's like, okay, I have incredible legs. I'm an amazing athlete. I never get tired. Let's go safe cross court and make Novak come up with something. Like, let's try to trust my legs here. I wish he went to that. Maybe he'll go to it next time. I think it could have been a more compelling match if he did that. Because Novak loves if you come at him. He wants to counterattack and defend and hit passing shots and retrieve drop shots. I think he'd much rather do that than if Norrie's going to hit through the middle and cross court and, make the points almost a little bit boring for Novak.
Oh, it's such a stew. Norie has that first set was like a bouillabaisse, a stew of all these different things of, seafood and noodles and vegetables and all these things. And then I don't know. And so I wonder, I really like the way Norie plays, but I wonder how he's going to process this match moving ahead. I think Novak you got a measure of him.
Yeah. Let's,
but yeah, if I could just jump in with this, as regards Novak and his talent, we had a Twitter follower who watches our show, Cam, brought up a topic which was actually brought on the US telecast that they brought up. And we've discussed it ad nauseum here on our podcast if you want to look through some of our older shows on Novak. But the question was, what makes him so good when it's not readily apparent to the eye, like it is with Roger or Rafa? And I came up with the 4 Ds. I mean, this is just me and what I see. And it's depth, direction, defense, and demoralization. So I think his depth is consistent and draws his opponent off the court. Direction, how he starts to open up the court. Defense, one of the most incredible defenders in the history of tennis, makes you hit 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more balls. And demoralization, after facing those first 3 Ds, you're going to get demoralized and do exactly what Cam Norrie did today, which was try to overhit or play too much.
Do you know what I think the best comeback? And I just thought of the same, and I do like the 4 Ds.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best comeback to what makes Novak great. What is he not great at?
Yeah.
That's right. I like that. And I like that I like that it's kind of like little d plus little d plus little d equals big D. I mean, these things that he does that eventually leads to that. And it's this smothering. And this thing, though, with the defense, I've talked about this before, we have about defense. Yes, certainly the Gumby and the retrievals and there's incredible shot he hit versus Sinner. But it's funny, and I talked about this recently with some teaching pros. What's the language? Defense steady. Well, if someone hits one ball about 8 inches inside your baseline, catches your eye. 2 balls, it's pretty good. 3, wow. 4, what's defense now? what's defense, what's offense, what's the application of pressure. And I draw an example of Chris Evert, because that's how she won. It appeared, what's really going on here? And it's so brilliant in its non-visible, the way we see the ballerina and Roger and the movements. And Roger, is going to probably, in any match, he could play us. And of course, that match is going to hit 3 shots. Oh my God, I've never seen that beat before, or that's incredible. Rafa, the bullfighter, the matador, right? And Novak, he's just kind of going about it. It's pretty amazing. Like I think of there's some great basketball players like Tim Duncan, kind of like that, just sustained brilliance.
My coach, what you described, Joel, my coach and I would describe it as trading. So it's not defense and it's not offense. It's trading.
Oh, I like that. Trading.
Yeah.
That's great.
Let's move on to Nadal. He withdraws, and there's basically, he got an MRI. It's a tear. There's structural damage. The difference, I don't know if this is relevant, but some of you may be wondering. I do believe there is a difference between what Djokovic sustained in 2021, which was an oblique, and I believe for Nadal it's in the frontal abs. So it is a different spot, but it's still a tear in the core muscle. Rafa did get onto the practice court. I saw footage of him serving. Did you guys see that? It looked so belabored. It just looked like it probably felt like he was getting stabbed in the stomach every time he served. And he said that he didn't feel like he had a chance to win 2 matches. And if you have no chance to win, he wasn't going to go out and play. Amy, were you just surprised by Rafa's decision? And, is there anything really more you can say of it than what Rafa said?
I was a little surprised. I thought, but I'm not a medical doctor. I thought if he could get through that match, I really held out hope that he could play this next match. But if there's a tear, there's a tear. And, it's not like the foot. And I think Rafa himself differentiated this, where he can feel pretty bad pain with the foot, but he's been told and assured by doctors and medical experts that it's not going to get any worse. It's not going to permanently disable him. But if you've got a tear, as we know from Novak's injury, the tear can increase in length over the course of a match. So it can get worse, and it can jeopardize your overall health. So of course, I understand and think he made the right decision.
As I was seeing Rafa announce his withdrawal from the tournament, I was texting various sources of mine, friends and other people, and made me think of the Watergate scandal. What did Rafa know, and when did he know it? And I was just wondering, but I researched this. Did Nadal know while he was playing Fritze that he wasn't going to be able to play? And I take it on good faith that he thought, like most competitors do, I'm going to fight through this and carry on and see what the next day is, particularly since there was a day off between. It wasn't like he was going to be playing the match the next day. But I was reminded, as were some of my friends, of a famous incident almost 50 years ago. Tom Gorman was in the semis of the year-ending championship. It's being played in Barcelona that year. He's playing Stan Smith in a best-of-5 semi, and he feels an injury, back injury, familiar back injury he's had before. But he figures, well, I'm going to lose anyway. And of course, when we're losing, we start to play more freely. When you think you're going to lose, you play freely. So he reaches match point, and then he walks up to the net and says, you go on to the next round. And so I thought of that scenario, and I was in touch with Tom Gorman earlier today, and he said he was 100% sure he was not going to be able to play the match the next day. So he did that. Nadal, I take it on good faith that Nadal thought, hey, let's get through this one and let's see. I was in touch with a physical therapist, an orthopedic surgeon, who said the same thing. It's like, he hadn't been diagnosed. You get treatment, hope for the best. So I just want to address that a little bit. It's an interesting topic. It's anything to consider, because you see, and then I think also, golly, what if that had been a semi versus Fritze, and Nadal had to show up? Yeah, I'm going to default the final, and that happened once. I just received this week a book called the Wimbledon that never was, about the 1931 final where that happened, where the American Frank Shields had an ankle injury, and he could have played, but the USLTA said, we got some Davis Cup in a couple of weeks. We need you healthy. Deef the Wimbledon final. Sidney Wood wins it. So these things happen. But now here we are 90, 50 years later. And I feel Nadal, he did all the right things in addressing this, but it's unfortunate. I don't know. It's sad. I wanted to see those matches.
Well, really good work by you to do all that background and to reach out to Tom Gorman. All that is fabulous insight and very interesting. I think, though, that you probably have come to the same conclusion that I have, that he needed to complete the match because he's a competitor, and that's the way it goes. And he needed the information. He needed the MRI. But I'm with Andy Roddick that, if you're a competitor, you do everything you can to win the match in the moment. And also Taylor Fritz said that he doesn't want any handouts, that he took full responsibility, which I thought was just a totally great and healthy attitude, that he should have beaten Rafa there. He had his chances and he just didn't do it. So he says, I don't want any handouts.
Yeah, I mean, he was eliminated. So I get, like, if you're Nick Kyrgios, how would you feel that you have to beat the guy who lost in the last round? Anyway, how
do you feel? How do you feel that you don't have to play anybody, though?
You feel good. You feel happy that you get to move on. Do you remember the last time we were having a similar conversation, guys?
Yes.
Last year, Roger Federer.
I think that would have been it would have been more reasonable for Roger, match point against Kupfer, right?
Mm-hmm.
It would have been more reasonable for Roger to do that than in this case, Rafa, in the heat of battle, trying to give himself a chance, find a way. Probably didn't think he was going to beat Taylor Fritz, but was just putting his head to the grindstone and seeing what happened and hoping to recover in the next 2 days.
Nadal never thinks he's going to beat anyone until he beats them. You know what I mean? It's like,
yes.
the Nadal approach. I mean, in a way, this is part of one of the themes, or it's almost like the mega themes of each of our guys. Novak is going to stop missing. That's what Novak's going to do. He's not going to miss. Roger's going to create something elegant, and Rafa, I'm just here to compete. We'll see how it goes. That's Rafa. And so he wasn't thinking that he's supposed to be Taylor. He's not supposed to be Taylor. There's no supposed to's in the Rafa world. There's just that's what makes him so compelling, and I think that's what makes him such a remarkable competitor.
Let's dig a little. Go ahead, Amy.
I was just going to say, it's interesting though that Rogers withdrawal was in the middle rounds and this was in the late rounds. It really does, to do this in the late rounds really puts a strain on the tournament. It puts a strain on TV rights holders. And I know people say, oh, I hate the broadcasters, screw them, who cares, but then out of the other side of their mouth, they say they want better coverage, they want a better streaming product, they want better talent, they want more insights. Well, just understand that not being able to broadcast a huge Wimbledon semifinal is it's going to put the TV network at a big deficit for the rights that they paid dearly for. So there's going to have to probably be some givebacks or something in the contract or something like that. And it's it's hard on the TV broadcasters. So not having a semifinal at Wimbledon, missing a semifinal is it's a big strain and it's not ideal.
First time in 30 years a slam semifinal had a default.
Krychek, right? 92?
Right. Yes.
I'm glad you said, Amy, that it's the TV and the fans, because I saw a lot of I feel bad for Taylor Fritz, and I don't understand that at all. And I think Fritz put that to rest, so we can get rid of that. I feel for the tournament. I feel for the fans. I feel for the TV rights holders. But this is, in my opinion, a hazard of individual sports. Doesn't happen in team sports. Brady goes down. LeBron goes down. We play on. Doesn't happen in golf. You got a field of golfers. In the UFC, it happens. The main event canceled. Boom. Fight's not going to happen, but the event still does, right? So similar to that. Tennis, this is how it is. The solutions are way worse than the problem, in my opinion. The solution of putting Taylor Fritz through, he already lost. He lost a match point in the tournament. He has a chance to win Wimbledon, and he will have gone 6-1 and lifts the trophy, even though he goes 6-1. What do you do about prize money? Nadal deserves his semifinal prize money. He won the quarterfinal. He deserves the semifinal rankings points because he won the quarterfinal. Who gets the prize money? Who gets the rankings points? What are we doing here? Not to mention just the fact that I guess for the history books, I just think it would create a big asterisk. So I hate it for the fans and the TV, but I don't think it's the same thing as a lucky loser getting put in the first round. Advancement in the main draw, that's one thing. That's up here. Participation in the main draw, we give that out a lot easier. We give wild cards. We give lucky losers. That's okay. But advancement, that's a separate level.
I like it. Wow, that's pretty cogent, thoughtful. I like all that, Gill. Yeah, I'm talking about the scenario of the lucky loser, and then they move them on. But then there's also we didn't mention the possibility of corruption in that also. That can happen too. People can get in cahoots and create a plan. Okay, I'll to advance or something like that. Yeah.
I will say that I have not made up my mind about it yet, but I think it should be discussed. And there are enough tennis minds, respected tennis minds out there who agree with me, including Pam Shriver, Brad Gilbert, Chris Clary of the New York Times, that let's at least talk about it. Sometimes in tennis, we get a lot of contrarianism just right off the bat. A rules change is proposed, and immediately it's shot down, and there's some sort of ugly debate that I don't think happens in all other sports. I think it happens a little bit in baseball, but even baseball, yeah, the purists. But even baseball, as Don Van Natta reported this past week with an amazing piece on Major League Baseball, they are considering going to robots to call balls and strikes as soon as 2024. So if baseball and their purists and traditionalists can consider innovations and rules changes, then we as a tennis community should at least be able to discuss it and weigh the pros and the cons without saying things like that's silly or dismissing these ideas out of hand. I will just say that I haven't made up my mind about it. And very, very broadly, if you think about it, in other sports, there are so-called double eliminations. I mean, that's not foreign. It does exist in some other sports, very broadly. And I'm not talking about taking a tennis tournament and doing a group stage. Please don't misunderstand me. I just think that we have a problem here, and if it becomes too much of a problem, we may need to look at some innovative solutions, just like what happened when in tennis we were having an overabundance of retirements, not like retiring from the sport, but retiring from matches, so in Grand Slams, so that the players in the first and second rounds could take their prize money and get out of there. And then the rules were changed to punish that kind of behavior and cut that out. And lo and behold, the retirements from Grand Slam matches are way down, and that benefits the fans and the sport overall.
Well, that's a great point. I think, though, you mentioned how this dialogue happens more in tennis, and I think I just I have a theory why. People play tennis, they're individuals, all levels. So they're very singular entities. They're all team owners, they're quarterbacks, they know what they know, and they want to make sure they say it. Now you bring in Twitter, social media. So the chance to pop off is right there. So it enters the fray. So something gets broached that way. And the culture of the team sports, and I know I'm probably romanticizing them a little bit, lends us, well, wait a second. what's else going on. But I think tennis players enjoy cracking off opinions and getting other people and getting people on them. I think I don't know. I don't think there's any such thing. I don't know. You know, it's like being around the sport 50 years, but does not make me like a purist or traditionalist. There are things I like and things I don't like. So I think, but what happens in the social media world, those things get batted back and forth, and people get tagged, and then people are drumming up support for themselves, or they're drumming up desires to affiliate themselves with other people, you know, to kind of connect with others in the game. So it creates this whole hornet's nest, and that's why I think for these type of topics, social media might not be the best place to kind of deeply dialogue on them. But it's interesting stuff to think about.
Good
especially
points.
especially on a 280 character limit. I do think there's there's definitely a systematic closed-mindedness that's an issue in tennis. I do think this is worth discussing, which is why we're doing it right now. I will also say in the very next sentence that the idea that Taylor Fritz would play a semifinal against Nick Kyrgios makes my stomach churn. But that's, you know, that's my stance on this one.
Yeah,
ready to talk about the final?
I agree with that. Assuming Nadal didn't default at match point. In other words, that's the only way Fritz either win the match or have Rafa do that. And of course, as I see, I don't think Rafa was in any kind of place to do that. Different than the Gorman scenario where Gorman 100% sure can't play tomorrow. Rafa was far from 100% of anything.
Yeah, it does not churn my stomach. Other things do, because Fritz played such a good match. And in other scenarios, you might not have that. You may have somebody that lost 1, 2, and 3, and then they're playing in the semifinal. And certainly that wouldn't make sense. I just think that, you know, we need to
wait a second. I'm sorry. If he loses 1, 2, and 3, the lucky loser thing isn't based on quality of effort.
Right. That's my point. That's my point. Exactly.
Right. So in other words, if Nadal had beaten Fritz 1, 2, and 3, yeah, and then right. So that's where this lucky loser concept gets complicated.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. That was my point.
Yeah.
So but the reason that I was just saying that the reason that Fritz playing in a semifinal against Kyrgios doesn't turn my stomach is because he played a great match. And this is notwithstanding of how he said he doesn't want a handout. I was just selfishly, purely as a fan, wishing that I could have seen Fritz play Kyrgios in a semifinal today. But you know, I understand why not. And I understand your stomach churning, Gill. I get that. And I hear you on that. I don't quite feel the same way, but it's a good discussion anyway.
How big a tear is it, Gill, in your stomach?
7 millimeters, I'd say.
And it could only get worse.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Kyrgios and Djokovic. It's an exciting final. There's going to be, I have high hopes and high confidence that we are going to see Novak pushed harder than he was in the semis today. There's so much intrigue and, you know, in terms of what Novak can do against the way Nick plays and his skill set, and even just the two personalities on the court, which is what Novak, I think he was joking after the match. He said there's going to be a lot of emotional fireworks. Mm-hmm. He said, yeah. So the personalities are something to watch. The skill sets is quite the contrast. Amy, what are you most looking forward to seeing play out in this final?
From a technical point of view, it would be Nick's serve against Novak's return. Mm-hmm. And also what will Kyrgios do on his second serve? You know how he likes to sometimes pump it in at 130 miles an hour. You know, underarm serve is something that he brings into play. I mean, it should be super, super entertaining. From an emotional or interpersonal standpoint, you know, a different friend texted me that Kyrgios hates Novak, and I said, no, you're like a year behind. That's so 2021. Actually, Kyrgios started to back Djokovic on the vaccine controversy. And in Nick's own words, in an interview that he did yesterday, I believe, he said that a fine bromance has blossomed and that the two of them text each other on Instagram, and that Novak saw Nick earlier in the week and said, I hope to see you in the finals. So they've actually kind of become friends. And so it'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out.
Yeah, that is right. That's right. They've kind of connected. And I think it's interesting how Kyrgios, who at various times during the pandemic was the voice of reason, was talking about things about being safe and protocols and all that. And then it's turned around, and they played 5 years ago, 2 times in the same month at Acapulco and Indian Wells. Kyrgios beat him both times. That, as we Novak chroniclers recall, was kind of a down period of Novak. I was at that match at Indian Wells, and it was impressive. I mean, Novak was playing that passive way where he can be taken, and in a 2 out of 3 set match, that's even more possible because it's such a shorter format. This one is different, and I think as I've been taught, there's 2 games in tennis: the serve game and the return game. And you hit it, Amy. The Kyrgios serve, the Novak return, and then the opposite too. When Novak is serving, what does Kyrgios do? I mean, Kyrgios is he's got so many skills, and how does he bring them, and how does he build his points? And then there's the whole nerves aspect. I don't know. He's remarkable.
I'm so personally interested in seeing if they play their best and for how long, right? In terms of, Nick hasn't been in a match this big, not even in the stratosphere. I mean, he didn't play the semifinal with Nadal. That would have been the biggest match of his life. That would have felt different, in my opinion. I mean, you got to remember the quarterfinal was kind of buried. He's playing Christian Garin on court 1. So look, he's had these experiences on the biggest stadiums in the world, certainly being the draw that he is from a scheduling perspective, being an unseeded player. Often he generally has that like second round popcorn match, Kyrgios Murray at the US Open. But this is the Wimbledon final. So I'm so fascinated to see how he handles that psychologically, given his whole deal about kind of never being someone who is all too motivated in terms of results, someone whose effort level was in and out, someone who's emotionally volatile. And then on the other side, Novak, I'm much more, obviously, I know how well he handles these occasions. I still wouldn't deny that this is a situation where there is an enormous amount of pressure on Novak with an opponent who can be pretty unnerving, I would say, in a lot of different ways. So I'm fascinated to see if which player we have feeling good playing their best. We hope both.
Yeah, but it's tennis, so neither. I think there's gonna be a lot of strange patches because the got a lot of storm. It's gonna be like a metaphorically stormy day of things, of curious flurries and moments. And I could even see some odd things like Kyrgios with getting down. Okay, 0-6, let that go. I mean, just stuff. Just like you see these flurries with Kyrgios, and yet it's fascinating. It's a really intriguing matchup. I don't think they're going to be playing their best simultaneously by design. I think they're going to each have these different kind of moments of crisscrossing things. We'll see some pretty impressive rallies at times, but it's just Novak's not here to help you play your best.
A couple of things that Nick has said have kind of stuck with me. To your point, Gill, he said that since he's been born, I think he's 27 years old. Since he's been born, only 8 people have ever won Wimbledon. And now he's going out there and trying to do it. I think he knows history really well, and I think that's going to kind of weigh on him. And just from listening to Nick in some of his more honest moments over the years, he really sees himself as someone who is supposed to entertain and bring eyeballs and be an iconoclast and bring young people in. So I wonder if his true goal is deep down inside is really just to entertain and give it a good go, give it a good show, or if he really has that killer instinct to want to win the championship.
Well, I think he definitely has some of the first. I think what it is, though, this is where you sometimes become at the mercy of your homework. And this is where his whole, it's like Nick versus Nick and who am I? It's like, I didn't mean to get to the Wimbledon final. Oh my God. That wasn't,
That's kind of what it feels like.
And now, oh my God, here I am. Here I am. It's the Wimbledon final. It's not the quarter. It's not the semi. I'm not the surprise. I'm there to really grab a significant outcome. And he's got his whole process, anti-process, this whole passive aggressive thing, the Australian thing. But the weighing, it's so funny. Pressure weighs on people. I thought it's a privilege. He feels more pressure. I feel more pressure.
It's not. It's usually not a privilege.
Well, but
no,
fighting words.
I love that quote. I adore that quote from Billie Jean King. But for most players in most situations, it is not a privilege.
Well, I think you forget that it's a privilege. You go temporarily insane and you lose perspective and you forget what it is all about. But I would be remiss, we would be remiss if we didn't bring up that there are two extra elements of pressure here, one on each player. One for Novak is that he may or may not be able to play the next 2 Grand Slams. So that's an element of pressure. And for Kyrgios, he has some accusations of domestic abuse hanging over him that he's going to have to face in Australia. And that story has just broke at the championship. So those are 2 extra elements that are going to be weighing on them or not weighing on them.
See, I think this stuff, I don't know. I know what we mean about pressure, and we use those terms and who feels more, but I think it's sort of a form of an illusion. It's not necessarily real, even though it's real. It's like belief and all these things. And I think one of the things I so like about Novak is there's been clutter. There are things, there's the external opponents and there's moments, and he just gets down to business. That's what I so like about him, how he just focuses on task at hand, playing a good point. And with Kyrgios, that's where we're kind of in the whole realm of the uncertainty about Kyrgios, because we haven't never seen him play. I've still never seen him play a Grand Slam semi. But now
total, yeah, I agree. Total uncertainty. But now quick clarification. The pressure, I see, right. Okay. Being in situations where you feel pressure is a privilege. It just doesn't help you play well.
What helps you play
well?
So
Joel, let me ask you a question. Novak, Olympics last year, once every 4 years, obviously fatigue, a big factor on both of these occasions, but wanting to win the Olympics so bad, really making that a goal, coming off of Wimbledon, all the things you saw there, US Open final against Medvedev. In those 2 situations, do you not think that the weight of what Novak was trying to achieve was a hindrance to him playing free and loose and his best tennis?
Well, we saw it sort of seemed to hinder him because he didn't play well. I think they're very different situations. One, the desire to accomplish something for a nation in which he's a bigger than life icon, the most significant person in his country, or up there. And 2, the possibility of history. Yes, of course, those are pretty super duper rare moments. I mean, the one he was in the US Open, nobody had been in 52 years, 3 sets away from doing that. The other is also particularly unique to Novak because of his relationship to his country in a way that It might not have been to an American playing that gold medal match. Might not, or gold medal or semi. He wasn't playing for the gold last year, but just an American might not have felt that way. Novak's affinity for his homeland. So yes, I get that. But now a chance to win a 7th Wimbledon. I'm not saying, of course, pressure, nerve. I get it. I mean, the nerves, maybe that's what Novak is. Maybe that's what a lot of these starts have been about this week, is his nerves.
Well, I think it's pressure is a privilege, almost like I'll come up with a corollary to that, the Roosevelt corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. Pressure is a privilege, but pressure is also physiological. It can make your heart increase. It can cause you to sweat. It can cause your muscles to stiffen and tighten. And those are facts. That's biological. So
Yeah.
it can have an impact.
There are studies that say it causes cramping. Medvedev cramped in the third set against Nadal in the Australian Open final. It was set number 3. Are you kidding? So that's a good point, Amy. Technically, let's get back to the first thing, which is that I think we all agree we're excited to see this. Kyrgios' serve against Djokovic's return. There have been, a lot of examples of this kind of intrigue on a grass court, knowing how important the first serve is, from the Federer-Djokovic rivalry, where that has been a major factor on Wimbledon, at Wimbledon, I should say. I think a lot of people's dream Djokovic matchup is Djokovic-Sampras at Wimbledon, wanting to know what that would look like. Sampras' serve volleying against Djokovic's return. Nick and his serving, it is special. Like, it is really, really, really great to an extent that maybe he doesn't even get. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's really after Isner and Opelka. What do we think? Is he the third best server in the world?
I think Novak would rather face those guys' serves also because of the way the Nick motion is so good and so whip-like, and the live arm. Also the uncertain decision making. You don't know. Sometimes maybe he doesn't even know, but he probably does. I think Kyrgios is a little more calculated than he thinks. And then the follow-up too, because of what Kyrgios can do with his ground strokes. I mean, the Sampras matchup is intriguing because of the serve volley aspect. So we're going to give Pete the Pete Wimbledon court or the contemporary Wimbledon court for Novak. Either way, the Nick thing, I think it's kind of the whole decision making. I think Novak, for example, Opelka he draws a beat on those guys, like he did with Sinner's game. Okay, I see. Here's where you go. Yeah, you have your 26 aces. Okay, that's good. But I pretty much am going to deal with you through these lanes. But Kyrgios, different.
I think I'm reminded of a video that I saw from some ATP guys. It was 4 or 5 years ago. They had used their technology to layer Nick's serve over itself, like whether he went wide or whether he went T, and they layered the videos. Oh, and it was identical.
Yeah.
So their point being that his serve is unreadable, and the toss is the same, and the racket is the same. His serve may be more unreadable than Isner's or Opelka's. So I think that's a good point, that he would maybe rather face those serves than Nick's serve.
Yeah, he also knows if he spits them back, those guys are less likely to hurt him. The way Kyrgios backs it up pretty well when he's playing well. But again, there's the whole uncertainty. We haven't seen him. I mean, so what was his? Once he got into that 5th set with Nakashima, he was pretty comfortable. The Tsitsipas, I mean, his toughest match was his first round
against Paul Jubb. Well, we can also talk about Nick's path. He beats Tsitsipas in the 3rd round. And here's a player who he is undefeated against, who struggles to return serve on grass. That's a horrific. But he's
you mean Tsitsipas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's gotten better, and he did win a grass court warm-up coming into this. I think that was a quality win.
I think it was a quality win, but I think there's a fair bit of, I mean, I don't know. I thought he'd win that. I guess that doesn't mean much, but like.
Yes, it does, Gill.
I
don't know, like something about that match. It just felt made for Nick, right? If you were to say, Nick, pick a surface, pick an opponent in the top 8, I think he's saying, give me Tsitsipas on grass.
In the 3rd round. In the 3rd round too. So I can just kind of have a no lose thing and serve a lot to a one-handed backhand and go to town and still emerge 7-6 in the 4th.
Yeah. And now he plays, right, Nakashima and Garin. It's not Kyrgios' fault. But there are questions like how ready is he to now play the elite of the elite in best of 5? There's a question there.
Yeah, he must be one of the most under-seasoned Slam finalists. I mean, you look at the other guys who Novak's played. For example, Berrettini last year, he generated some results. Obviously, the time before he's playing Federer, even Kevin Anderson. Kevin Anderson is a campaigner. Kevin Anderson is kind of the anti-Kyrgios in his approach to work and discipline. So here's Nick. It is just, it's hard. I'm trying to remember a more wild card like finalist, and I don't associate even Goran Ivanisevic, who was 125 in the world, but he'd been to 3 finals.
And yet we know what Kyrgios is capable of based on his record against the current top 10, which I believe is above 500 now.
But bad in best of 5. I'm not sure what it is exactly, but
his overall record in best of 5 is pretty good, though, isn't it?
Versus top 10.
But versus top 10.
Versus the current top 10 or
at the time top 10. I'll get it it'll take me only a second to get it. Best of 5. Oh, okay. Hold on.
I remember looking up some stats from earlier this week that he had a pretty good record in best of 5. And he'll tell you in 5-set matches, he's undefeated at Wimbledon or something. He's got all the stats.
Well, yeah, because when he's playing, he creates a lot of drama in the early rounds because he's under seasoned sometimes. And so then he has to go 5 sets with someone who you'd like to think he should beat in straight sets. And that's all good. So I want to see him, it's a remarkable career. And here he is in a Wimbledon final. And it's a fascinating matchup. I mean, here's a guy Novak, who always does his homework. And here's Kyrgios showing up. Wow.
All right. 3 wins, 15 losses. It was a 10-match losing streak. 10-match losing streak before he beat Tsitsipas. So the history of beating top 10 players in best of 5, it is not there.
I think you guys might have been talking about 2 different data points. One.
Yeah, I was talking about overall record in best of 5.
No,
we were talking about playing top 10 players in best of 5 format.
Right. And I was saying he has a pretty good record just overall in best of 5 and also in 5-set matches. But you're talking about top 10.
Yeah, I'm saying, is he ready to beat top players in best of 5? Because in best of 3, he's actually been he has a good record. He's 25 and 35, which is fine. It's pretty good against top 10 players. And then you just see that win percentage just nosedive when it's best of 5, which means it's a major.
But what's his overall record in best of 5?
Wait,
the question, yeah, I'll get that. But wouldn't the question be, is that better or worse than best of 3, right? Because he's a good player, so he should have a good record in general.
In best of 5 format as opposed to 5th sets.
So best of 5, best of 5 format. He is 57 and 32, which is a 64% win percentage. Now let's see all best of 3. He is 184 and 93. That is a 66% win percentage. So slightly, maybe negligibly better in best of 3.
And his 5-set record?
Oh, in 5 setters.
Yeah.
It goes to a 5th. That would be 11 and 3. That is excellent.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Nakashima and Jubb 2-0 in this event. All right, let's wrap it up with one thing that I think we will see. Okay, I think here is one thing that I do think we will see. Djokovic's rate of returns in play, in my opinion, is going to expose some of Kyrgios's bad habits, lapses in focus, some poor decision-making, occasional laziness, just those little blips in the radar. Those little blips in the radar are going to be a lot worse because of how much Djokovic is able to get the serve back. Joel?
I agree with that. And it reminds me of the time early in Kyrgios's journey. I think it was Roland Garros and I think it was Andy Murray. So I think that's kind of like a prototype matchup. It's like this guy. It's like, that's why I would have been interested to see Kyrgios play de Minaur in lieu of Guerin. Like, this guy just keeps spitting things back. And how many forehand winners do I have in me? So you're right. So it's because he's going to hit his share of aces. He'll hit plenty, 25 plus or something aces. But how much? What's the spit back rate of the other ones? And deep and middle and deep and middle. And again, I think we talked about that before, about a good way to play Kyrgios might be to hit to a lot of B and C deep middle, because he loves off the move, angle, go, shot, make, do something. So I agree. That's going to be interesting. So again, yeah, serve and return. That's the pivot.
I think one thing I would look for is break point opportunities. How much can he get into the Kyrgios service games and annoy him and bother him, even if he doesn't convert those breaks? That's something that I think Djokovic really did well today. He may not have had a great conversion rate, but it seemed that he was always bothering Norie in his service games. So that could be a key in this match.
Well, and I think when you're a great returner, it's generating those. And again, I think you're getting into those games. You're right. So if he earns 17 break points and he wins 3 of them, you can win Wimbledon. I mean, it's not about going 14 of 17.
Yeah, exactly.
Novak Djokovic goes for major number 21 against unseeded, but extremely talented, unpredictable Nick Kyrgios. 7th Wimbledon title on the line. We will have coverage afterwards. We're pumped for this one. That'll do it for this episode of 3. Remember, we're available on all podcast platforms. We appreciate it if you rate and review. And if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. We will see you next time on the next episode of 3.